questions for us to consider is why, how come this new identity? For comparative purpose, let me say that this is not so different from what happened in the United States from the 1880s to now. The first generation came to the United States from a regional basis in Europe. In the United States started to mold, or to be molded into an American ethnic identity. But that may take us too far. And President of the Flame said, I only have till 9 o'clock tonight. So, what I want to suggest as part of this, and I'll come to it the time, the fact that in some ways the Muslim religious identity that is, I think, being developed in Europe is in part a reaction to a reflection of Islamophobia, a certain kind of a negative identity conferred on the Muslim population in Europe, which may well have to do with why this Islamophobia. Well, I'll give you a structural interpretation, and I'll give you also a global interpretation. The global one is, in some ways, the negative identity has to do with our reactions to 9/11, of terrorism, which now becomes a label in terms of labeling theory. If one is a Muslim, you must be a terrorist, or you might be a terrorist. And if you might be a terrorist, then the actions towards you may well make you think of yourself and internalize that negative identity. So it's a very complicated fact that I don't think that Bruce Mayhew developed was dark enough into the questions of identity, which to me I've been fascinating with as part of, in a sense, a structural analysis. So, September 11, 2001, I think, is a global marker which changes a lot of how people relate to others. Not just in Europe, but also in the United States. I think we have questions to raise about what is terrorism and who is terrorism, who are the terrorists. But in part, in Europe, the Islamic population of immigrants in the second generation, and now the third generation, come to be seen as possible suspects of being terrorists, which adds to the marginalization, in a sense, of the immigrant population. And in the marginalization of the Islamic population, a religious identity becomes very important and very salient. And the religious identity, and we have now come to it, the religious identity is that of belonging to or being a member of the Ummah, which in some ways one may think of as the Ummah in a sense as the community, but it's a community not in a narrow locale, but much more sort of global universal collectivity. So I'm saying that there's a transformation of, in a sense, a transformation identity, that belonging to something global, in a sense, compensates for being marginalized or being, in a sense, not taken to be a member of the particular European community in which the population is. Okay, that's part of my analysis. So now you see, I think, the setting up that I will try to follow. Of the Danish cartoons, and what I want to do is to take this event, to look at it structurally, to look at the objective bases of the relationship of the Muslim population in Europe to certain demographic trends and other trends to account for why the Danish cartoons generated such a tremendous outburst in the Islamic world. I'm going to bring in Durkheim, but I want to say that not only is Durkheim notion of the sacred profane important as a kind of a lever to understand the reactions in the Muslim world to the Danish cartoons. But I also want to suggest that Durkheim's notion of the sacred and the profane can also now enable us to look at a second sacred, or a second profanation of the sacred, which is also involved in the Danish cartoon affair, sort of a second violation of the sacred that is part of the overall thing. All right? And then I'd like to conclude, if I'm given a little more time, I'd like to conclude this by not only by going beyond the Danish cartoon situation to sort of look at, in the United States, whether we have structurally some of the same problems and situations as the European case, okay? So it's a long-winded introduction, right? But let me see now if I can come to, I think you all got, well, most of you got the set of tables. Part of New Europe is, this has some relationship to secularization. Part of New Europe is the decline, the demographic decline of all Europe. Very sharp, very, very sharp decline of the countries that have benefited the most from economic integration. Very sharp decline, below reproduction. And a significant increase, in a sense, in the Muslim population because of immigration into Europe. So table 1, right, looks at the percentage of the Muslim population, and there's wide variation in Europe, right, if we take all of Europe. Now, you'll see, for example, at the top of table 1, Albania is 70% Muslim, but Albania has been Albania has been Muslim fairly recently, by the way. Because, why? Because in the communist days, religion was not allowed or prescribed. The people were not Muslim. They were not Catholic. There was essentially the communist regime, right? With the blow-up in 1989, with the blow-up of the Soviet Empire, there was an opening for proselytizing for Islam, and the Saudis have spent a lot of money to have imams come to set up mosques and so on and so forth. So the Albanians said, hey, it's true, we're Muslims. They weren't Muslims. I mean, they were, you might say they were, they weren't. But I mean, it's a fairly new population. But however, now 70%, there's also a chunk that's Catholic and so on and so forth, 70%. You also have Bosnia. I mean, it's the same situation. I mean, Yugoslavia, under Tito, you did not really have a practice of religion. But now, you know, Bosnia, the Bosniaks have been, so on and so forth, you know,